Creating a presentation in InDesign. Okay, bear with me, this one's going to take a little while. Here we are at part 2 in our cycle of how to create presentations. This one utilizes InDesign. I might caution you, there are innumerable ways of using InDesign, and I'm not going to tell you that this is the correct way. It does, however, get the job done, and it creates a document that you can wrap up as a PDF, and that is invaluable. PDF formats allow you to email documents to potential clients as a means of communication. They can also be easily incorporated into portfolios so that you can show off your work to potential employers. Let's have a look at how to go about setting this up. Just as in the previous example, we will start with the LASC file that I used from before. You're going to be using your own. Here are the 16 images that I used to set up the slideshow. In this case, however, I'm using the slideshow version to begin with because all of the images have been resized already, and this will make placing them into InDesign a lot easier. Next, you will want to open InDesign from the Adobe Programs file. Once inside, you will want to be sure to select a landscape format. InDesign is automatically set up to give you either 8.5 by 11 inches portfolio or portrait orientation or 11 by 8.5 inch landscape orientation. All you need to do is to select the correct one from the orientation button in the new document palette. If you note the width and the height are set in picas, this is because InDesign is a desktop publishing program and measurements in desktop publishing are in picas. Not to worry, however, as you change your orientation, the correct number of picas that work out to 11 inches wide by 8.5 inches high are automatically created. Normally, we would change the number of pages here before we begin, but I'm going to back into this in a different way because I want to show you how to add pages just in case you don't know how many you may need to be going in, or you've forgotten the number of images that you have in your presentation file. So we'll just leave this set to one page at this point. Now click on the OK button in the lower right hand corner. When your document opens, it should look like this. My libraries and swatches palettes are open, but I don't need to contend myself with that just now. Now I will show you how to change the number of pages in your document. Just go to the top bar and select Windows, Pages. Note that in the upper right corner of the InDesign screen, a box has appeared. This is the Pages palette. By clicking on the icon in the bottom right corner of the palette next to the trash can, you can add as many pages as you want simply by clicking again and again on the icon. Here I have added 4, but only 2 are showing up on my viewing area. I will continue to click several more pages. If using my magnifier I zoom out, I can see that I have now added 17 pages. You will be doing quite a bit of zooming in and out when you're creating your documents. This is a way to keep track of where you are in the presentation. It also allows you to see how one page relates to another and how all of the pages relate to the whole. Now we're going to begin to place our images into InDesign documents. Go to File, Place. The Place dialog box opens up and you can find the file that you are looking for. In this case, my file of LASC images. If I click on the LASC file, it opens and I can see all of the images in that file. I'm going to place the image 00 JPEG image or the front panel image. If I click back into my InDesign document and then click again, I will see the image appear. At this point, I can slide it around to wherever I want it to go. Note that because I carefully sized all of my images to 11 by 8.5 inches high, it will nearly fit the first page perfectly. Zooming in, you can see that I have not yet placed the image directly over the InDesign page, but that the handles clearly show where to position it. Now it appears that I still need to enlarge the image in order to get it to fit into the InDesign page. In order to resize an image in InDesign, you have to hold down both the Control or Command and Shift buttons simultaneously while you drag the image larger. This not only constrains the image, but allows you to control it as you resize it. Here it is finally in position. Note also the small icon in the upper left corner of the image. Looks like a small link from a chain. This is the link icon. It means that InDesign knows where this image comes from. That is, it is linked back to your image file. In my case, that would be my LASC file. You should always store both your InDesign file and a copy of any of the items that accompany it in the same location. Otherwise, this icon will turn into an exclamation mark inside of a yellow triangle, meaning InDesign doesn't know where the image is. This could cause you problems if you want to do any further work on this document. I'm now going to proceed with adding another image to the presentation file. This is the second image from my file, the logo panel. Again, note that I have a size problem. My image is not the same size as the page in InDesign. This is actually okay because I want some extra white space, or in this case simply some added extra space below the image itself where I'm going to place my text. So I'll pull the image into place where I want it to go, and now I have to come up with some way of turning the background of InDesign document black, like the surrounding frame around my image, so there isn't any jarring differences in color that I will need to cover up when I place my text over it. To engage this feature, I will go to my Layers palette by going to Windows, Layers, and once the Layers palette is open, I will click to add another layer. When I do this, the name of the layer that I'm bringing my images into as images, note that the color for this layer is light blue. This is important. A new layer has been created called Layer 2. I will now click on that layer, and this time I'm going to label this layer Background. Note that this layer has a color of red. I'm going to select my fill icon from the tool palette to the left. It is the uppermost of the two square icons. The top is fill and the lower is stroke. I want to create a box and fill it with a color, in this case black. If I now select my color picker, just like the icon in Photoshop, the one that looks like an eyedropper, the color picker window will open. I want to be sure to select the same black background that I have behind my images. They were done in Photoshop, and I know that in Photoshop my background was set to a hexadecimal of 000000. And if it isn't set to that already, I can change it here in the hexadecimal window. It is also R0, G0, and B0, or hexadecimal is easier to remember most of the time. What I'm going to do now is using my Shape tool, that is the 11th tool down from the top in the Tools palette, and drag open a black rectangle around both pages 2 and 3 in my document. Notice that the red handles all around the shape. This lets me know that I am in the background layer, not in the images layer. Staying in the background layer, I'm going now to want to copy and duplicate this same background for every other page combination down through the rest of my document. This is because all of my images have a black background around them, and I don't want there to be any difference between my images and the background in InDesign document. So with the black shape still highlighted, I will do a right click and go to Copy. I will drop down to the next group of 2 pages, click once on them to select them, and then do a right click and do a Paste in Place. This is important. Paste in Place puts the shape right in the same spot on these 2 pages as it was on the previous 2 pages. Zooming out again, I can see that I now have all of my available pages filled with the same black background shape. Be sure at this point to lock the background layer so that you don't accidentally work in it again. You are done with the background layer at this point. Now I know that the next several images are very similar in size to the one that I had previously placed. In order to make it easier to place others, I will highlight this first one and then copy and paste it into the third page location, like this. What this allows me to do is to quickly select another image and place it into this location. That image will then have the same height and width constraints, and I won't need to resize it if it looks okay. So with the image holder in the third page selected, I will again go to Place, and with the file open, I will select image 02, or the first rough sketch, and then click OK to place it. With the second image placed, I want to duplicate the two image areas from pages 2 and 3 by highlighting and copying them, and placing them in place into pages 4 and 5 below, just as I did with the black background shapes previously. Now I'm going to highlight the image holder on page 4 and place image 03 into it, like this. I will continue this process all the way down through all of the pages. Here I am working on page 6, placing the first of the technical drawings of the floor plan for the planetarium. Duplicating that image and placing it into pages 7 and 8. I do this because these images are slightly different than the first 4 images, and I need to change the size of the image placeholder. Here is the floor plan duplicated and placed into pages 7 and 8. And then all of the images added to fill out the rest of the presentation. I am now ready to begin adding text to my document. To do this, I'm going to select the text tool from the tool palette. It is the T icon, which is 6 down from the top. Please note, if you haven't already, that I have also created yet another layer and named it Text Layer. I have also locked the other 2 layers to make sure that I am not working in those layers. Note that the layer is green. I will now drag open a text box into which I will begin to add my text description about the first image. Be sure that your text box has no fill and now border when you drag it open. That is, pay attention to the icon squares at the lower left-hand corner of the tool palette. Now we need to set a color for the next text. To do this, with the text tool selected, you will click on the small t just to the upper left of the display where the fill usually is. If you click on the small t, the color picker will appear. However, this time you are selecting the color for the text, not the fill of the box. I want to select a color that comes close to the one that I use for my intro panel, which is an orange-yellow color. If I had bothered to remember the hexadecimal code, this would be easy, but I didn't, and so I'm just going to pick something close. Again, probably not the best advice. If you want this to appear as professional as possible, you should probably go all the way back to your Photoshop file and use the color picker and find out what the hexadecimal code was for it. For the sake of brevity here, I'm just going to proceed with close enough. With the color selected and my font set to Arial Bold Italic, I put in an experimental line of type just to see what it looks like. If I zoom in on this, this is what it looks like. I can proceed now to create all of my copy, and using the same copy and paste techniques that I used for the images, I can march down through the document and add all of the text panels describing all of the images. I will show you the finished document here in a moment, and we will do an experimental in-class demonstration as well so that you can see everything that I just described in somewhat better detail. When you have all of your document finished and all of your text panels are in place, you're probably ready to wrap up your document into a form that you can email or copy to another device for presentation. To do this, simply go to File, Adobe PDF Presets, and choose the smallest file size. Be sure to give your document a meaningful title, something that you'll remember, and be careful to make note of where you are saving it under the Where window. Here I am saving my document exactly where the InDesign document and my LASC files are located. This lessens the confusion. Now click Save. Next, this Export dialog box will appear. It's simply asking you to OK the presets. Just hit Export. Here's the document in the outer file location of my flash drive. I will now move it into the LASC presentation file. When I open it up at this point, it opens as an Adobe Acrobat file, and most computers have that program as a native file, so you don't have to worry about whether whoever you're sending this to will be able to open it and view it. To navigate down through the document, use the up and down arrows located here. Here's the second page. Now we'll take a look at the final document laid out in InDesign, and I'll show you how some of the things that I just showed you are done. Hopefully, you will use this method to put your presentations together when you're creating portfolios or presentations to clients and employers. It's a lot like using InDesign to do a PowerPoint presentation, but it gives you a lot more freedom to create things as everything is native to Adobe.